Alright, this play is for sure dead. It's January 8th, 2011. We're in Seattle, Washington for an NFC wildcard playoff showdown between the oddly visiting New Orleans Saints and the helpless hometown Seahawks. Seattle is trying to extend their 4-point lead late in the final quarter, but I highly doubt it'll happen here. Saints defenders are draped all over this run. It's over with. But before we move on, it's important to understand these two teams' makeup, why we're here in Seattle, and how a new addition to the Seahawks could have a quaking effect on the franchise. To do all that, we gotta rewind. If you're a subscriber to our Patreon, you've probably already did some rewinding and seen this episode. But if you haven't subscribed just yet, don't worry. You can get some new stuff every Monday, like episodes of Pretty Good, our podcast, and loads of other stuff. Now let's get back to the action. For a normally rocking crowd, god damn is it quiet here in Qwest Field. It's like someone died. Well, not like an actual human being, but Seattle's double-digit lead less than a quarter ago has expired, which isn't all that surprising coming from this New Orleans team. The astounding part is no one expected the Saints to be in this situation. New Orleans entered this season as reigning champs, looking to pull off a rare feat: repeat. Other than losing defensive captain Scott Fujita, the Saints returned their championship core, leading journalists to expect another deep postseason run. Yet, once the 2010 campaign kicked off, the Saints seemed to be drunk off their past success. Midway through the year, New Orleans looked far from a playoff team as their typical high-powered offense appeared pedestrian. In previous seasons, as long as QB Drew Brees stood behind center, the Saints either smoked teams out the gate or caught opponents lacking with late game winning drives. The Saints built a reputation for forcing comebacks and grinding out games, which notably got them to the big dance last year with an overtime conference title victory over the Minnesota Vikings. However, early this season, New Orleans looked flat and dropped games to inferior teams. Maybe they needed time to adjust, or drank a shit ton of Gatorade, because after a while, the Saints kicked their hangover. In the backstretch of the season, New Orleans dialed in, rattling off 6 straight wins, including a Week 11 ass whooping against the Seahawks. In typical resilient Saints fashion, they continued their role as the comeback kids and finished the season 11-5, snatching a wildcard spot. They entered the playoffs banged up after suffering some key injuries in the final game of the season, but journalists believe the Saints were still good enough to make a strong run. Unlike last year, they had to get it out the mud and hit the road, but in the eyes of media members and odds makers, a first-round matchup at Seattle was cake. Being a double-digit away favorite, especially in the postseason, seems absurd, but the Saints backed up those beliefs and jumped out to an early 10-point lead. Even when they found themselves down 2 touchdowns, Brees masterfully executed back-to-back scoring drives, chopping Seattle's lead to 4. Like the regular season showed, this team thrived under adversity. You could feel the momentum shift, and as Seattle got the ball back late in the final quarter, the matchup appeared to be headed toward another classic New Orleans resurgence. But with possession of the rock, the Seahawks can fend off a furious comeback. This doesn't look like the play that'll get them there, but if Seattle can put together a strong drive, they can make history. It won't be the prettiest, but historic nonetheless. No one knew what to expect from this team in 2010. After a disastrous 2009 season, the franchise cleaned house and brought in acclaimed University of Southern California head coach Pete Carroll. As a former NFL skipper, Carroll was ecstatic about the opportunity to return to the pros, downplaying the NCAA dark cloud hanging over his former school. But no matter his reasoning, experts were skeptical he would be successful in the NFL. For one, Carroll's first few stints in the league were kinda He led USC to glory, but there wasn't a great track record of college coaches that jumped to the NFL. Media members labeled him an overhyped and overpriced candidate. No matter their beliefs, Carroll got to work immediately. Alongside new GM John Schneider, Carroll revamped the roster with hundreds of transactions in the offseason to build a new-look Seahawks team. Journalists called Carroll a madman, but when Seattle came out hot, nearly matching their win total from last season through just 6 games, experts gave Pete his props. However, things fell apart drastically as Seattle dropped 7 of their following 9. All the blame couldn't fall on Carroll. The team had several flaws across the board and faced a quarterback controversy late in the season after veteran starter Matt Hasselbeck got benched in favor of Charlie Whitehurst. A week after being forced to ride the pine, it didn't help that Hasselbeck also suffered a hip injury that jeopardized the remainder of his season. Yet, the Seahawks entered Week 17 with their playoff hopes still alive. Yes, a 6-9 squad had a shot at the postseason. For most of the year, Seattle and the St. Louis Rams were jockeying for best of the worst in the laughingstock NFC West division. It perfectly came down to a season finale mid-off to decide the champs. With Hasselbeck unable to suit up, Whitehurst led Seattle to their first division title since '07. In the win, the Seahawks became the only team in NFL history to play a full season and make the playoffs with a losing record. On the flip side, experts believe Seattle's postseason entrance stained the league. Journalists furiously debated over the NFL's playoff system and whether division champs should be granted home games. It's been a conversation for years, but Seattle backpedaling into the playoffs while other NFC squads with double-digit wins had to miss out seemed ridiculous. But that's how it works, and while we found ourselves in Seattle, no matter how stinky the Seahawks have been, come game time, Seattle proved their worth. After falling behind early with an unlucky interception deep in their territory, Hasselbeck, who got the start after missing last week's contest, lit up the Saints D with 3 first-half touchdowns to give the Seahawks a slim lead going into the half. It's wild to think this was the same dude who Carroll benched just a few weeks ago, and he wasn't finished. On their first drive out the break, Hasselbeck again found the end zone with a beautiful 38-yard strike to extend Seattle's lead. After a successful field goal on their following possession, a squad that journalists believe had no business being in the playoffs was nearly a quarter away from advancing. We were reaching unprecedented territory. Then Breeze and the Saints woke up. As the home crowd fell silent with the game slipping away, the Seahawks started this drive with a measly run. I mean, it doesn't look like this play is going anywhere either. New Orleans has Seattle running back Marshawn Lynch dead to rights. Like many others, Lynch is a new addition to the Seahawks, but this season especially marks a new era for his career. The Buffalo Bills picked Lynch 12th overall in the 2007 draft. For a guy who spent his life on the West Coast and played college ball at the University of California, arriving in Western New York was a shock for Lynch. He thought he would be kicking it with the likes of Jay-Z. Despite his confusion, Lynch embraced the city and proved to be a beast on the field with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Except, it was issues away from football that hindered his play. In 2009, Lynch pleaded guilty to a gun charge that cost him 3 games that season. Later that same year, he lost his starting job to Fred Jackson. When Buffalo drafted Clemson standout running back C.J. Spiller 9th overall the following season, the writing was on the wall for Marshawn. A month into this 2010 campaign, Seattle swung a trade to land their new running back. Carroll became familiar with Lynch's bruising running style during his coaching days at USC and jumped at the chance to bring him to Seattle. Lynch hated Carroll's eccentric energy during their matchups in college, but looked forward to beginning a new chapter of his NFL career by having the trust of his coaches. Experts applauded the move. Before the trade, Seattle's run offense sat near the bottom of the league, and journalists believe Marshawn could provide toughness on the ground that the franchise had been missing for years. During his first couple of games, Marshawn provided that bruising spark, finding his way to the end zone, but as the year progressed, the trade didn't amount to much. Many pointed to Seattle's makeshift offensive line being the issue rather than Lynch, but the results couldn't be argued. Finally, in a must-win Week 13 matchup against the Carolina Panthers, Lynch had his breakout point of the season with 3 touchdowns, proving he still had the juice. Seattle dropped their next 3, but grabbed the division title in the final game behind a solid rushing attack from Marshawn. If the Seahawks had any shot at beating the Saints, media members believed Seattle would need a balanced offensive effort from Hasselbeck through the air and Lynch on the ground. Hasselbeck held his end of that bargain, but Lynch hadn't found the end zone. The Seahawks still had faith in their guy. Lynch didn't find room to get free on first down of this drive, but Seattle is looking to him again right here. If the Saints can get a stop, which looks very likely, they'll be a down away from forcing Seattle to punt and have the chance to complete an epic comeback on the road. The energy is off at Qwest Field, but with the ball, Seattle can drain the clock or potentially extend their lead if they move the chains. With a team full of newcomers, Marshawn has a shot at a fresh start with the Seahawks. He's shown flashes of his brute force, but he needs an earth-shaking run for him to get out of this situation. Seattle initially got a great push up front, but New Orleans defenders have him wrapped up. Even if Marshawn can shake free, these folks are still in great position to pounce. Elite level blocking won't get him out of this. Ain't no shot. Third down is for sure on the way. Welcome to a moment in, well, it's just a moment, right?
Oh, look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.
What the fuck just happened? There were several times where this play looked done for. The missed tackles at the line of scrimmage, I guess, can be excused, but when Marshawn reached the next level, all hell broke loose. The man fought off arm tackles with ease and gave Saints defenders piggyback rides as they held on to him like little children. At one point, he stiff-armed a dude into another dimension before hitting the gas again and high-stepping over folks, diving at his legs, making his way into the end zone. The run sent the Seattle faithful into a frenzy. But there was still time left on the clock. With the ball, Breeze and the Saints marched down the field for an easy touchdown, barely draining any clock. They failed to convert their 2-point conversion, which would have brought this game within 3, but a clean onside kick could keep them alive. Of all the times New Orleans pulled off a comeback, it just wasn't in the cards for them, as Seattle cleanly recovered the attempt. After a few plays to run out the clock, all Seattle needs to do is kneel here. Again, welcome to a moment in history.
It is a shocker. No other way to say it.
Thanks for watching this episode of Rewinder. Like I said up top, if you're a subscriber to our Patreon, we already love you. Well, we love all our viewers, but our Patreon folks get a little more special attention. We'll always be there and here on YouTube to supply you with some dopeness.